Layla Brooks spent years being invisible, just another maid cleaning luxury hotel rooms. But when she catches the attention of Daniel Westwood, a billionaire hiding from his own life, her world changes forever. Can love bridge the gap between their worlds? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Grand Plaza Hotel, highlighting the dust particles that Layla Brooks was trying to eliminate. At 24, she had already spent 6 years cleaning rooms in this luxury hotel, where the rich came to show off their wealth and importance. "Room service," Layla called out softly, knocking on the door of suite 712. After waiting a moment, with no response, she used her key card to enter, pushing her cleaning cart ahead of her. The suite was a disaster. Clothes were thrown everywhere. Empty champagne bottles littered the floor and the bed looked like a tornado had hit it. Layla sighed. The wealthy guests were always the messiest. "Just another day," she whispered to herself as she began collecting the scattered designer clothes. As she worked, Layla hummed a simple tune, something her mother used to sing. Her dark brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her hotel uniform hung a little loose on her slender frame. She wasn't tall or striking, just average in every way that seemed to matter in this glamorous world. 2 hours later, after cleaning 3 more rooms, Layla was pushing her cart down the hallway when she heard loud laughter coming from the elevator. The doors opened to reveal 4 women dressed in expensive clothes, their perfectly manicured hands holding shopping bags from stores Layla could never afford to enter. "Excuse me," Layla said politely, trying to move her cart to make way for them. One of the women, a blonde with too much makeup, looked Layla up and down. "Oh my God, Veronica, look at this one," she said loudly. "I swear they hire these people straight from the trailer park." The other women tittered, not even trying to lower their voices. "Do you think she even knows what Chanel is?" another one asked, waving her shopping bag. Layla kept her eyes down, her cheeks burning with humiliation. She'd learned long ago that responding only made things worse. She was invisible until they wanted someone to mock. "Ladies, your rooms are ready," came a deep voice from behind Layla. "Perhaps you'd like to continue your conversation there, rather than in the hallway." Layla turned to see a man she hadn't noticed before. He was tall with dark hair and the kind of face that belonged in magazines. His jeans and simple button-up shirt were casual but clearly expensive. The women immediately changed their demeanor, smiling at the handsome stranger. "We were just having a little fun," the blonde said sweetly. "No harm meant," the man raised an eyebrow. "I'm sure the hard-working hotel staff appreciates your sense of humor," he said coolly, "especially after they've cleaned up the mess you left in your rooms this morning." The women's smiles faded, and they hurried past, suddenly silent. "Thank you," Layla said quietly once they were gone. "But you didn't have to do that." The man looked at her with surprisingly kind eyes. "I know I didn't have to, I wanted to." He held out his hand. "I'm Daniel." "Layla," she replied, hesitantly shaking his hand. "Layla Brooks." "Well, Layla Brooks. Those women were incredibly rude." "You handled it with much more grace than I would have," she shrugged. "I'm used to it. It comes with the job." "It shouldn't," Daniel said firmly. Then he glanced at his watch. "I have to go, but it was nice meeting you, Layla." As he walked away, Layla found herself watching him, surprised by the encounter. Most guests either ignored her completely or treated her like the women in the elevator had. No one ever stood up for her. Later that evening, Layla was finishing her shift when Maria, the front desk clerk, called her over. "Hey, you know that guy in 814? The quiet one who's been here for a week? The one with the dark hair? I just met him today," Layla replied. Maria leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Well, he just requested that you be the one to clean his room for the rest of his stay, specifically asked for you by name." Layla's eyes widened. "Me? Why would he do that?" Maria grinned. "Maybe he likes you. He's cute, right?" "Don't be ridiculous," Layla said, but she couldn't help the small flutter in her stomach. The next morning, Layla knocked on the door of room 814, feeling inexplicably nervous. "Come in," called a voice from inside. Daniel was sitting at the desk, typing on a laptop. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Good morning, Layla." "Good morning, Mr." She realized she didn't know his last name. "Just Daniel is fine," he said, closing his laptop. I'm sorry if my request caused you any trouble. I just thought it might be nice to see a friendly face. It's no trouble, she said, beginning to clean. It's my job. Daniel watched her for a moment. Have you worked here long? 6 years, she replied, surprised by his interest. Since I was 18. You must have seen some interesting things. Layla smiled despite herself. You have no idea. As she worked, they kept talking. Daniel asked about her favorite places in the city, and Layla found herself telling him about the small park near her apartment and the old bookstore on the corner that stayed open late. I'd love to see some of these places, Daniel said. The tourist spots get old after a while. I'm sure you can find better guides than a hotel maid, Layla said, immediately regretting how bitter she sounded. Daniel's expression turned serious. I don't see a hotel maid. I see a woman who's been kind enough to talk to me when most people in this hotel only care about what I can do for them. Layla didn't know how to respond to that. She finished cleaning in silence, confused by the whole interaction. Over the next week, Layla found herself looking forward to cleaning Daniel's room. Unlike other guests, he always made sure his things were tidy before she arrived. He was often there when she cleaned, and they would talk about books, movies, and life in the city. Why are you staying at the hotel for so long? Layla finally asked one day. Most business people are only here for a few days. Daniel hesitated. I'm taking some time to figure things out. My life got complicated recently. Complicated how? She asked, then blushed. I'm sorry, that's none of my business. No, it's okay, Daniel said. Let's just say I discovered that most of the people in my life were more interested in what I could provide than in who I am. Layla nodded. I can understand that. Not the having things people want part, she added with a laugh, but the feeling that no one sees the real you. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air between them. Daniel took a step closer. Layla, A knock at the door interrupted them. Housekeeping supervisor, called a stern voice. Layla jumped back, her heart racing. That's Mrs. Winters. I need to go. As she hurried to open the door, Daniel retreated to the balcony, giving her space. Mrs. Winters, a thin woman with sharp eyes, looked around the room suspiciously. Brooks, you've been in this room for 20 minutes. What's taking so long? I'm sorry, Mrs. Winters. The guest had some special requests. The supervisor narrowed her eyes. Just remember, we're not paid to socialize with the guests. Finish. Up and move on to the next room. After she left, Daniel came back inside. I'm sorry if I got you in trouble. It's fine, Layla said, quickly gathering her cleaning supplies. But she's right. I should be professional. Would it be unprofessional if I asked you to have coffee with me? When you're not working, I mean. Layla stared at him. You want to have coffee? With me? Daniel smiled. Is that so surprising? Yes, she said honestly. It is. Then I'll have to prove I'm serious. Tomorrow at 2, there's a cafe across the street. After a moment of hesitation, Layla nodded. Okay. When she left the room, her mind was spinning. Why would someone like him be interested in someone like her? It didn't make sense. The next day, Layla stood outside the cafe, second-guessing herself. She'd changed her outfit 3 times before settling on a simple blue dress, the nicest thing she owned. She'd even put on makeup, something she rarely bothered with. Just as she was considering walking away, Daniel appeared, smiling when he saw her. So you look beautiful, he said. Layla blushed. Thank you. The cafe was small and cozy, far less fancy than the hotel's restaurant. They found a table in the corner, and Layla relaxed slightly as Daniel ordered coffee for both of them. Tell me about your dreams, he said once they were settled. What does Layla Brooks want from life? No one had ever asked her that before. I want to go to college, she admitted. I've been saving, but it's slow. I want to study education, be a teacher. That's wonderful, Daniel said, looking genuinely interested. What made you want to teach? My 3rd-grade teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. She was the first person who made me feel like I could be something more. Layla smiled at the memory. I want to do that for other kids. As they talked, Layla found herself opening up more than she had. With anyone in years, there was something about Daniel that made her feel safe, seen. What about you? She eventually asked, What do you do when you're not staying in hotels? Daniel hesitated. I work in finance. It's not very interesting. You don't seem like a finance guy, Layla observed. What does a finance guy seem like? She laughed. I don't know. Older, more serious. Definitely not someone who defends hotel. Maids from rude socialites. Daniel's expression softened. Maybe I'm trying to be better than my environment. The afternoon passed quickly, and when they finally left the cafe, Layla felt like she was walking on air. Daniel asked if he could see her again, and she agreed without hesitation. Over the next 2 weeks, they met whenever Layla wasn't working. Daniel took her to places she'd never been. A hidden garden in the city center, a rooftop with a view of the entire skyline, a tiny restaurant with the best food she'd ever tasted. Each time Layla waited for the catch, for Daniel to reveal that this was all some kind of joke, but he remained kind and attentive, genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings. One evening as they walked by the river, Daniel reached for her hand. His touch sent electricity through her body. Layla, he said softly, I need to tell you something. Her heart dropped. Here it was, the moment when everything would fall apart. I haven't been completely honest with you about who I am. Before he could continue, they were interrupted by a commotion ahead. A crowd had gathered around a television in a shop window, all watching a breaking news story. Westwood air still. Missing, read the headline, showing a photo of a familiar face. Daniel's face. Layla froze, staring at the screen in disbelief. The reporter was saying something about Daniel Westwood, son of billionaire Richard Westwood, who had disappeared from public view 3 weeks ago, causing concern among shareholders of Westwood Industries. She turned to Daniel, her eyes wide, with shock. You're Daniel Westwood? The look on his face confirmed everything. Layla, I can explain. Explain what? She said, pulling her hand away. That you've been lying to me this whole time? That this was all some kind of game to you? No, it wasn't like that, Daniel insisted. I just wanted someone to see me. For me, not for my family name or my bank account. Layla shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. How could you? I trusted you. I told you things about my life, my real life, not some made-up story. Everything I told you about how I feel was real, Daniel said desperately. The only thing I hid was my last name. And the fact that you're a billionaire, Layla cried. That's a pretty big detail to leave out, Daniel, or whatever your name really is. My name is Daniel, Daniel Westwood. And yes, my family has money, but that doesn't define who I am. Layla looked at him through her tears. It might not define who you are, but it defines your world. A world where people like me clean up after people like you. Layla, please, I have to go, she said, turning away. Don't follow me. As she hurried down the street, Layla felt her heart breaking. For 2 wonderful weeks, she had allowed herself to believe in a fairy tale. But fairy tales weren't real, and neither was her relationship with Daniel. Back in her tiny apartment, Layla collapsed on her bed, replaying every moment they'd spent together. Had it all been a lie? Or worse, had it been some rich man's idea of charity, making the poor maid feel special for a while? The next morning, she called in sick for the first time in years. She couldn't face going to the hotel, couldn't bear the thought of seeing Daniel again. But when her phone rang later that day, it wasn't the hotel. It was Maria. Layla, you need to get down here, her friend said urgently. Your mystery man has lost his mind. What are you talking about? Daniel Westwood, yes, that Daniel Westwood is sitting in the hotel lobby with the biggest bunch of flowers I've ever seen, refusing to leave until he sees you. Layla's heart raced. Tell him I'm not coming. He says he'll wait all day, and Layla, he looks miserable. After hanging up, Layla paced her apartment, torn between anger, hurt, and a longing she couldn't suppress. Finally, she made her decision. At the hotel, she slipped in through the staff entrance, avoiding the lobby. She made her way to the service elevator, planning to go to Mrs. Winter's office and explain why she needed to quit. But when the elevator doors opened on the main floor, Daniel was there, as if he'd known she would come this way. Layla, he said, his voice filled with relief. Please, just give me 5 minutes. She looked at him, at the dark circles under his eyes, at the desperation on his face. Despite everything, her heart ached for him. 5 minutes, she agreed. Daniel led her to a quiet corner of the hotel garden. "I never meant to hurt you," he began. "When I saw you that first day being treated so badly by those women, I just wanted to help. And then, when we started talking, I realized how special you are, how genuine and kind and real." He ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "Do you know how rare that is in my world? Everyone wants something from me. Every relationship comes with strings attached." "So you lied to me?" Layla asked. "I didn't tell you my last name," Daniel corrected. "Everything else, everything I felt, everything we shared, was real. I was going to tell you the truth that night by the river. I had it all planned out." He took a step closer. "Layla, I'm falling in love with you. Not because you're beautiful, although you are. Not because you're kind, although that amazes me every day. But because when I'm with you, I feel like the person I want to be, not the person everyone expects me to be." Layla felt tears in her eyes. "How can I believe that? How can I trust you now?" "Give me a chance to prove it," Daniel pleaded. "One more chance." As she looked into his eyes, Layla felt her resolve weakening. Part of her wanted to run away and protect her heart, but another part, the part that had felt truly alive these past weeks, wanted to believe him. "I don't belong in your world, Daniel," she whispered. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. "Then let me belong in yours." Standing there in the garden with the distance between their worlds seeming both vast and insignificant, Layla faced the biggest decision of her life. Could she trust this man with her heart again? Or was she setting herself up for an even greater heartbreak? "One chance," Layla said finally. "But I need time to think about all this. It's too much to process." Daniel nodded, relief flooding his face. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." "I should get back to work," she said, suddenly aware they were still at the hotel, her workplace. "Mrs. Winters is probably looking for me." "Actually," Daniel said with a slight smile, "I spoke with the hotel manager this morning. You have the day off, with pay." Layla frowned. "You can't just do that. It's exactly what I'm talking about, Daniel. You can't use your money to control my life." Daniel's smile faded. "You're right. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking." He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm not very good at this, am I?" Despite herself, Layla felt a small smile forming. "No, you're not, but at least you're trying," she sighed. "I really do need some time. Can I call you tomorrow?" "Of course," Daniel said. He hesitated, then handed her a business card. "My personal number is on the back." Layla took the card, staring at the embossed name. Daniel Westwood, Executive Vice President, Westwood Industries. Seeing it in print made everything more real. "Tomorrow," she promised, then walked away, her emotions still a jumbled mess. At home, Layla searched online for information about Daniel Westwood. Her tiny laptop was slow, but soon enough, page after page of results appeared. Photos of Daniel at charity galas, business conferences, and exclusive social events filled her screen. There were articles about his business success, speculation about his love life, and gossip about his sudden disappearance. In every photo, he looked polished and distant, nothing like the warm, thoughtful man she'd come to know. But then she found an interview from last year where Daniel spoke about the Westwood Foundation's educational initiatives for underprivileged children. "Everyone deserves a chance to build their own future," he said in the video. "Education is the key to opening doors that might otherwise remain closed." Those words sounded like the Daniel she knew. The next morning, after a restless night, Layla called the number on the card. "Layla," Daniel answered on the first ring, hope clear in his voice. "I'd like to talk," she said, "but not at the hotel or anywhere too public. I understand. There's a small park near the river. It's usually quiet during weekdays." They agreed to meet at noon, Layla dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, refusing to overthink her appearance. This conversation wasn't about attraction, it was about truth. Daniel was already waiting when she arrived, sitting on a bench overlooking the water. He stood when he saw her, his face lighting up despite his obvious nervousness. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he admitted. "I wasn't sure either," Layla said honestly, sitting on the bench. Daniel joined her, leaving a respectful distance between them. "I did some research on you last night," she began. Daniel nodded. "Find anything interesting?" "I found Daniel Westwood, business tycoon and society darling, but I didn't see much of the man I've been spending time with these past weeks. That's because that Daniel Westwood is mostly a creation of the media and my family's expectations," he said quietly. "The real me is the person you've gotten to know." "Why did you disappear?" Layla asked. "The news said you've been missing for weeks." Daniel sighed. "I wasn't missing. I just needed to escape. 3 weeks ago I discovered that my fiancé was only interested in my money and family connections. You were engaged." Layla felt a fresh wave of hurt. He'd kept that from her too. "It was arranged," Daniel said quickly. "A business merger, more than a relationship. Our families have been pushing us together since we were teenagers. Vanessa comes from another wealthy family, and our parents thought it would be a perfect match. What happened? I overheard her talking to her friend at our engagement party. She was laughing about how she could barely stand to kiss me, but that my bank account made it worthwhile." His jaw tightened at the memory. "She said she'd make sure to have a solid prenup drawn up, but there were always ways around those." Layla winced. "That's terrible." "It was a wake-up call," Daniel continued. "I realized that I was surrounded by people who only saw my name and my wealth, so I left. I told my parents I needed time alone to think about the engagement. I checked into the Grand Plaza under my name, but asked the staff to be discreet. And then you met me," Layla said softly. "And then I met you," Daniel agreed with a small smile. "Someone who had no idea who I was. Someone who treated me like a normal person." "Because I thought you were a normal person," Layla pointed out. "I am a normal person," Daniel insisted. "Yes, I was born into privilege, but that doesn't make my feelings less real." Layla looked out at the river, gathering her thoughts. "Even if I believe you, even if I accept that your feelings are genuine, we come from completely different worlds, Daniel. I clean hotel rooms for a living. I live in a tiny apartment with a roommate I barely see. I count every dollar I spend. None of that matters to me," Daniel said. "But it should," Layla countered, "because it's my life, it's who I am." "It's not all you are," Daniel said gently. "You're also thoughtful and determined. You have dreams of becoming a teacher. You care about people. I've seen how you treat everyone at the hotel with kindness, even when they don't deserve it." Moved closer on the bench. "Layla, I'm not asking you to fit into my world. I'm asking for a chance to show you that we can create our own world together." Before she could respond, Daniel's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. Sorry, it's my father. I should take this." Layla nodded, watching as Daniel stepped away to take the call. Even from a distance, she could see the conversation was tense. When he returned, his expression was troubled. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Not really," Daniel admitted. "My father wants me back at the company immediately. There's a situation with a hostile takeover attempt. He's threatening to cut me off if I don't return to handle my responsibilities." "What are you going to do?" Daniel looked at her intently. "That depends on you, Layla. I need to know if there's any chance for us before I make any decisions." Layla felt the weight of his words. "That's not fair. You can't put that kind of pressure on me." "You're right, I'm sorry," Daniel said quickly. "My family situation isn't your problem." "It's not that," Layla said, frustrated. "It's that you're making it sound like you'd give up everything for me, and we barely know each other. That's not realistic." "You're right," Daniel acknowledged. "But I do know that I want to keep seeing you, keep getting to know you, without lies or pretense." Layla studied his face, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. Despite all her doubts, she couldn't deny the connection she felt with him. "Okay," she said finally, "we can keep seeing each other, but slowly and in the real world, not some fantasy bubble. And you need to deal with your family and company. I won't be the reason you throw away your responsibilities." Daniel's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Thank you." He hesitated, then asked, "Would it be okay if I kissed you right now?" Instead of answering, Layla leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was sweet and filled with promise. When they parted, Daniel said, "I should head back to the city. My father's sending a car." "Will you be staying at the hotel?" Daniel shook his head. I'll need to go to my apartment downtown, but I'll call you tonight." After one more kiss, they went their separate ways. Layla walked home slowly, her mind still processing everything. She wasn't sure what she'd gotten herself into, but she knew she wasn't ready to walk away from Daniel Westwood just yet. The next few days passed in a blur. True to his word, Daniel called Layla every night, sharing details about his work and family that he'd previously kept hidden. He was fighting the takeover attempt while also trying to convince his father that Vanessa wasn't the right match for him. "He doesn't understand," Daniel told her one night. "He married for love. My mother was a lawyer he met during a business negotiation. But now he expects me to marry for business connections. What does your mother think?" Layla asked. There was a pause. "She died when I was 15. Cancer." "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I didn't know." "It's okay. It was a long time ago." But his voice held a sadness that told Layla it still hurt. "She would have liked you." "You can't know that," Layla said, though she was touched. "I do know it," Daniel insisted. "She always valued honesty and hard work above all else. That's you, Layla, on my..." Friday, Daniel invited Layla to dinner at his apartment. She was nervous about seeing where he lived, afraid it would emphasize the difference in their situations. The building was as impressive as she'd feared, a gleaming high-rise with a uniformed doorman who greeted Daniel by name. In the elevator, Layla fidgeted with her dress, a simple blue one she'd bought specially for the occasion. "You look beautiful," Daniel said, noticing her nervousness. "I feel out of place," she admitted. Daniel took her hand. "You belong wherever I am." His apartment was on the top floor, a spacious penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the city. But rather than the cold, showroom-like space Layla had expected, it was surprisingly homey. There were books everywhere, comfortable furniture and family photos on the walls. "I expected something more." Layla trailed off, not sure how to express it. "Pretentious," Daniel suggested with a smile. "Sorry to disappoint." Layla laughed. "It's a good disappointment." Daniel had prepared dinner himself, a simple pasta dish that was delicious. "Where did you learn to cook?" Layla asked, impressed. "My mother taught me. She believed everyone should know how to take care of themselves, regardless of wealth." He smiled at the memory. "My father thought it was ridiculous for the heir to Westwood Industries to learn cooking, but she insisted." As they ate, Layla found herself relaxing. This was still the Daniel she knew, thoughtful, attentive, and easy to talk to. After dinner, they sat on the couch, looking out at the city lights. Daniel put his arm around her, and Layla leaned into him, feeling a sense of contentment. "I have something for you," Daniel said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small wrapped package. "Daniel, you don't need to give me gifts," Layla protested. "It's not what you think," he assured her. "Open it." Inside was a key. "It's to the apartment," Daniel explained. "I'm not asking you to move in or anything like that. I just want you to feel welcome here anytime you want to come by." Layla stared at the key, conflicted. It was a sweet gesture, but also a reminder of their different realities. Daniel could casually hand out keys to his luxury penthouse, while she shared a cramped apartment with a roommate she barely knew. "Thank you," she said finally. "But I don't think I'm ready for this." Daniel's face fell. "I pushed too fast." "Didn't." I'm sorry. It's okay," Layla said, touching his cheek. "I appreciate the thought. I just need more time." "Take all the time you need," Daniel said. "I'm not going anywhere." The moment was interrupted by Daniel's phone ringing again. He glanced at it with a frown. "It's my father. Again. He's been calling all evening." "You should answer it," Layla encouraged. "It might be important." Daniel sighed but took the call. His expression quickly turned serious. "When did this happen? Are you sure?" "Yes, I'll come right away." He hung up, his face pale. "What is it?" Layla asked, alarmed. "It's my father. He's had a heart attack. He's at St. Luke's Hospital." "Oh my God. Go now," Layla said, already standing up. "Do you want me to come with you?" Daniel looked torn. "Would you? I know it's a lot to ask." "Of course I'll come," Layla said firmly. "Let's go." They took Daniel's car, a sleek black sedan with a driver who appeared within minutes of Daniel's call. At the hospital, they were quickly directed to a private waiting room where a stern-looking woman in an expensive suit was pacing. "Finally," she said when she saw Daniel. "Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours." "I was at dinner, Margaret," Daniel said tensely. "How is he?" "Stable, for now. The doctors are still with him." Margaret's gaze shifted to Layla, her expression turning cold. "And who is this?" "This is Layla Brooks," Daniel said, putting a protective arm around Layla's waist. "My girlfriend." The word sent a jolt through Layla. They hadn't discussed labels. Yet Margaret raised an eyebrow. "I see. Well, this is hardly the time for introductions. The doctor wants to speak with family only." As if on cue, a doctor in scrubs appeared at the door. "Mr. Westwood, I'm Dr. Chen. Your father is stabilized, but he's asking for you." Daniel turned to Layla. "Will you be okay here for a few minutes?" "Of course," Layla assured him. "Go see." "Your father." After Daniel left with the doctor, Layla sat awkwardly in the waiting room with Margaret, who continued to study her with undisguised curiosity. "So, Miss Brooks," Margaret said finally, "how did you and Daniel meet?" "At the Grand Plaza Hotel," Layla answered truthfully. "A society event?" Layla hesitated. "Not exactly." Before Margaret could press further, the waiting room door opened again. A stunningly beautiful woman with long blonde hair and a designer dress entered, looking dramatically distressed. "Where is he?" she demanded. "Where's Richard?" "Vanessa," Margaret said, standing. "Richard is still with the doctors. Daniel is with him now." "Daniel is here?" Vanessa's perfect features lit up. Then she noticed Layla. "Who's this?" "This is Miss Brooks," Margaret said with a slight curl of her lip. "Apparently, she's Daniel's girlfriend." Vanessa stared at Layla, her eyes widening. Then she laughed, a cold tinkling sound. "You can't be serious." Layla felt her cheeks burning but held her head high. "I should go check on Daniel," she said, standing up. "I don't think that's a good idea," Margaret said quickly. "Family only, remember?" "Let her go," Vanessa said with a dismissive wave. "I'm sure Daniel will come to his senses once he sees what he's missing." She gestured to herself with a smug smile. Layla left the waiting room humiliated. She found a quiet corner near the nurse's station, trying to compose herself. This was exactly what she'd feared, being thrust into Daniel's world where she clearly didn't belong. After 20 minutes, Daniel found her. "There you are. I was worried when you weren't in the waiting room." "How's your father?" Layla asked, avoiding his question. "Stable. It was a mild heart attack, thankfully. They want to keep him for observation." Daniel studied her face. "What happened? You look upset." "I met Margaret and Vanessa," Layla said simply. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "I'm sorry. I should have warned you that Vanessa might show up. She's been trying to reconcile since I broke off the engagement." "She's beautiful," Layla said quietly. "She's empty," Daniel countered. "There's nothing inside except ambition and selfishness." "Daniel, be realistic. She fits into your world." "I don't." "Stop saying that," Daniel said firmly. "You fit into my life because I want you there." "But I don't fit into your family's expectations," Layla insisted. "You should have seen the way they looked at me." "I don't care how they looked at you," Daniel said, taking her hands. "I care how I look at you." Before Layla could respond, a nurse approached them. "Mr. Westwood, your father is asking for you again." Daniel nodded, then turned back to Layla. "Wait for me, please." Layla hesitated, then nodded. "I'll wait." Daniel was gone for almost an hour. When he returned, his expression was troubled. "What happened?" Layla asked. "My father wants me to take over as CEO while he recovers," Daniel said. "And he's still pushing the merger with Vanessa's family company. He thinks it's the only way to stop the hostile takeover." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I'd handle the business, but that I wasn't marrying Vanessa." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. He didn't take it well. Said I was throwing away everything he'd built for a fling. The word hung between them. "Is that what I am?" Layla asked softly. "A fling?" "No," Daniel said emphatically. "You're the most real thing in my life right now, but my father doesn't understand that." Layla took a deep breath. "Daniel, I think we need to take a step back." "What?" "No, Layla, don't let them get to you." "It's not just them," Layla said. "It's everything. Your father is ill. Your company is in trouble. You need to focus on that right now, not on me." I can handle both, Daniel insisted. Maybe you can, but I'm not sure I can, Layla admitted. Being here tonight, seeing the difference between our worlds so clearly, it's a lot to process. Daniel's face fell. You're leaving me. I'm giving us both space, Layla corrected gently. You have responsibilities, Daniel, family obligations. I don't want to be the reason you turn your back on them. You're not, Daniel said desperately. Layla, please don't do this. Layla reached up to touch his face. It's just temporary. Until things settle down with your father and the company, then we can reevaluate. Daniel caught her hand, pressing it against his cheek. Promise me you won't shut me out completely. I promise, Layla said softly. I'll answer when you call. With a final gentle kiss, Layla walked away, her heart heavy. She told herself she was doing the right thing, giving Daniel the space he needed to handle his family crisis, without complications. But as she left the hospital, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was making the biggest mistake of her life. Back in her small apartment, Layla curled up on her bed, finally letting the tears come. She'd done what she thought was best, but it hurt more than she'd expected. In just a few short weeks, Daniel Westwood had worked his way into her heart, making her dream of possibilities she'd never considered before. But tonight had been a harsh reminder of reality. His world of wealth and privilege was a universe away from her simple life. Despite his insistence that none of that mattered, Layla couldn't ignore the truth she'd seen in Vanessa's mocking eyes and Margaret's dismissive glance. In their eyes, she would never be good enough for Daniel Westwood. As she drifted off to sleep, her phone chimed with a message from Daniel. This isn't over. I won't give up on us. Despite her sadness, Layla smiled. Maybe it was foolish to hope, but for now that simple message was enough to keep her heart from breaking completely. 2 weeks passed, and Layla threw herself into her work at the hotel, taking extra shifts whenever possible. The distraction helped keep her mind off Daniel, though not entirely. Every day he sent a text message, nothing demanding, just small reminders that he was thinking of her. Good morning. Hope your day is wonderful. Saw a street performer in the park today. It made me think of, you. Miss your smile. Each message tugged at Layla's heart, but she kept her responses brief and friendly, maintaining the distance she'd established. At the hotel, rumors were flying about her relationship with Daniel Westwood. Someone had seen them together at the hospital, and now the staff couldn't stop talking about it. Is it true you're dating a billionaire? Asked Tina, another maid, as they prepared their cleaning carts one morning. We were seeing each other, Layla said carefully. It's complicated. Girl, what's complicated about dating a rich, handsome man? Tina laughed. If I were you, I'd be moving into that mansion right now. Layla forced a smile, but didn't respond. No one seemed to understand that Daniel's wealth was part of the problem, not the solution. That afternoon, Mrs. Winters called Layla into her office. The supervisor's thin face was pinched with disapproval. Brooks, there's been a lot of gossip about you and a certain hotel guest, she said. I hope you understand that fraternizing with guests is against hotel policy. Mr. Westwood isn't a guest anymore, Layla pointed out. Nevertheless, this kind of attention is disruptive to the workplace. Mrs. Winters straightened a stack of papers on her desk. There have been reporters asking questions, photographers hanging around. Layla's stomach dropped. I'm sorry, I had no idea. Well, now you do. Mrs. Winters gave her a stern look. I'm putting you on the executive floor cleaning duties for the next month. There are no photographers allowed up there, and the guests value their privacy. Layla nodded, grateful she wasn't being fired. Thank you, Mrs. Winters. Don't thank me, the supervisor said crisply. Mr. Westwood made a substantial donation to the hotel's employee education fund. Management is feeling rather generous toward you at the moment. Layla felt her cheeks burning. Daniel had interfered again, using his money to solve her problems. As soon as she left Mrs. Winters' office, she texted him, We need to talk. Tonight, after my shift. His response came immediately. Name the place. They met at a small coffee shop far from both the hotel and Daniel's usual haunts. Layla arrived first, choosing a table in the back corner. When Daniel walked in, Layla's heart skipped despite her irritation. He looked tired, with shadows under his eyes, and his normally perfect hair slightly disheveled. but his face lit up. When he saw her, "You look beautiful," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "You look exhausted," she replied honestly. Daniel smiled wryly. "Taking over as CEO while fighting off a hostile takeover will do that to you. How's your father?" "Recovering. Still trying to control everything from his hospital bed." Daniel shook his head. "But you didn't ask to meet to talk about my father. What's wrong?" "You made a donation to the hotel," Layla said, getting straight to the point. "A very large one, according to Mrs. Winters." Daniel had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I heard there were reporters bothering the staff because of me. I wanted to make amends by throwing money at the problem. By helping the hotel establish an education fund for employees," Daniel corrected. "Something you once told me you wished existed." Layla blinked, caught off guard. She had mentioned that to him once during one of their early conversations. "The fund will provide scholarships for staff who want to further their education," Daniel continued, "including full college tuition for those who qualify. I thought you'd be pleased." Layla faltered. "It's not that I'm not grateful. It's a wonderful thing for the hotel employees. But Daniel, you can't just solve every problem with your checkbook." "Why not, if it helps people?" Daniel asked. "Isn't that what wealth should be used for?" "But it feels like you're trying to buy my affection," Layla insisted. Daniel's expression turned serious. "Layla, the donation had nothing to do with winning you back. It was about fixing a problem I created for you and your co-workers. And yes, the education fund was inspired by you, but it's something I would have done anyway, once I knew the need existed." Layla studied his face, seeing the sincerity there. "I believe you," she said finally. "And thank you. It will help a lot of people." Relief flooded Daniel's features. "How have you been?" he asked softly. "Busy," Layla said. "Taking extra shifts." She hesitated, then admitted, "Missing you." Daniel reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. "I've missed you too, more than I can say." "How's the takeover situation?" Layla asked, changing the subject before her emotions got the better of her. Daniel's expression darkened. "Not good. Vanessa's family, the Claytons, are behind it. They want to merge our companies one way or another. If they can't do it through marriage, they'll do it by force." "Can they really take over Westwood Industries?" "They're trying," Daniel said grimly. "They've been buying up shares and recruiting our board members to their side. My father believes the only solution is for me to reconcile with Vanessa." "And you don't agree?" "I'd rather lose the company than marry someone I don't love," Daniel said firmly, "especially when I'm in love with someone else." The words hung between them. Layla's heart raced as she met Daniel's gaze. "You don't need to say anything," Daniel said quickly. "I just wanted you to know how I feel. I love you, Layla. These past 2 weeks have only made that more clear to me." Layla's eyes filled with tears. "Daniel." "No pressure," he assured her. "I understand why you needed space. I just hope that someday you might give us another chance." Before Layla could respond, Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "I'm sorry, it's my assistant. There's an emergency board meeting." He looked torn. "I have to go." "It's okay," Layla said. "Go." Daniel stood reluctantly. "Can I call you later?" Layla nodded. "I'd like that." With one last longing look, Daniel hurried out. Layla remained at the table, her emotions in turmoil. He loved her. Daniel Westwood loved her. And despite all her efforts to guard her heart, she knew she loved him too. The next morning, Layla was cleaning the executive floor when her phone rang. It was Maria from the front desk. "Layla, you need to see this," Maria said urgently. "There's an article about you in the Herald." "What?" Layla felt a chill. "What does it say?" "It's calling you a gold digger. There are pictures of you and Daniel Westwood at the hospital and outside his apartment building. The headline is, 'Hotel Maid Targets Billionaire Bachelor.'" Layla felt sick. Who would write such a thing? The byline says, "Vanessa Clayton," Maria replied. "Isn't that his ex?" Of course, Vanessa was getting her revenge. When Layla's shift ended, she found reporters waiting outside the staff entrance. They swarmed around her, shouting questions. "Ms. Brooks, How long have you been after Daniel? Westwood? Are you pregnant with his child? Did you know he was wealthy when you seduced him? Layla pushed through them, keeping her head down, tears stinging her eyes. She made it to the bus stop and collapsed onto the bench, shaking. Her phone rang. Daniel. She answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Have you seen the article? She asked without preamble. I'm handling it, Daniel said, his voice tight with anger. My lawyers are already preparing a defamation suit against the Herald and Vanessa. It won't matter, Layla said miserably. People will believe what they want to believe. Layla, where are you? Daniel sounded worried. Are you safe? I'm at the bus stop outside the hotel. There were reporters. Stay there. I'm sending my driver. He'll be there in 5 minutes. Daniel, no, please, Layla. Let me help you this once. She was too drained to argue. Okay. True to his word, a sleek black car pulled up minutes later. The driver, a kind-faced older man, got out and opened the door for her. Miss Brooks? I'm Thomas. Mr. Westwood asked me to bring you to his apartment. Layla hesitated, then got in. She wasn't ready to go home and face her roommate's questions anyway. At Daniel's building, Thomas escorted her through a private entrance, avoiding the lobby where more reporters might be lurking. When she reached the penthouse, Daniel was pacing, his face a mask of fury. He rushed to her as soon as she entered. Are you all right? He asked, taking her hands. I'm so sorry, Layla. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid by keeping a low profile. I'll be okay, Layla said, though she didn't feel it. It's just humiliating. Daniel led her to the couch. My PR team is working on a statement. We'll clear your name. My name doesn't matter, Layla said tiredly. I'm nobody. It's your reputation I'm worried about. Don't say that, Daniel said fiercely. You are not nobody, and my reputation will be fine. Rich men date all the time and no one bats an eye. But not hotel maids, Layla pointed out. Who cares? Daniel threw up his hands in frustration. Why should anyone care who I love? Because you're Daniel Westwood, Layla said softly. Everything you do matters to someone. Daniel sat beside her, taking her hands again. The only person whose opinion matters to me is you. Layla leaned against him, suddenly too exhausted to keep fighting. Daniel wrapped his arms around her, and for the first time in 2 weeks, she allowed herself to feel the comfort of his embrace. Stay. Here tonight, Daniel murmured into her hair. There's a guest room. You'll be safe from the reporters. Layla nodded against his chest. Just for tonight, she would let down her defenses. The next morning, Layla woke to the smell of coffee. She found Daniel in the kitchen making breakfast. Good morning, he said with a warm smile. Sleep well? Better than I expected, Layla admitted. She'd borrowed one of his t-shirts to sleep in, and it hung nearly to her knees. Thank you for letting me stay. For you're welcome here any time, Daniel said, sliding a plate of eggs and toast in front of her. I called Thomas. He can take you wherever you need to go today, away from the reporters. I have the day off, Layla said, but I should probably go home at some point. No rush, Daniel assured her. He hesitated, then added, Actually, I was hoping you might come with me to visit my father today. Layla nearly choked on her toast. Your father? The one who thinks I'm just a fling? He's asked to meet you, Daniel explained. Properly this time, not in a crisis. Why would he want to meet me? Especially after that article. Because I told him I love you, Daniel said simply, and that you're not going anywhere, no matter what Vanessa or anyone else says. Layla stared at him. But I did go somewhere. I walked away. Temporarily, Daniel said with a small smile. At least I hope it was temporary. Layla took a deep breath. You really want me to meet your father? Only if you're ready, Daniel said. No pressure. Layla thought about it. Maybe facing Daniel's father was exactly what she needed to do, to show both him and herself that she wasn't intimidated by his world. Okay, she said finally. I'll meet him. Daniel's face lit up. Really? That's wonderful. But I need to go. Home first, Layla insisted. I can't meet your father wearing yesterday's clothes. Of course, Daniel agreed quickly. Thomas can take you home and wait while you change. Then I'll meet you at the hospital at noon. Layla nodded, already wondering if she was making a huge mistake. At home, she rifled through her closet, trying to find something appropriate for meeting a billionaire. She settled on a simple navy blue dress, modest but flattering. Going. "Somewhere fancy?" asked her roommate Jen from the doorway. "Meeting Daniel's father," Layla replied, applying a touch of mascara. Jen whistled. "The billionaire's dad? After that nasty article?" "You saw it?" Layla winced. "Everyone saw it," Jen said bluntly. "But it's obviously a hit piece. Anyone who knows you're not like that." "Thanks," Layla said, touched by her roommate's support. At the hospital, Daniel was waiting outside. His face brightened when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing her cheek. "I'm nervous," Layla admitted. "Don't be. Just be yourself." Daniel squeezed her hand. "That's who I fell in love with." Richard Westwood had been moved to a private room that resembled a hotel suite more than a hospital room. He was sitting up in bed, reviewing documents despite the medical equipment around him. He looked up when they entered, his shrewd eyes immediately focusing on Layla. "So this is the young woman who's turned my son's life upside down," he said, his voice stronger than Layla had expected from someone recovering from a heart attack. "Father, this is Layla Brooks," Daniel said formally. "Layla, my father, Richard Westwood." "It's nice to meet you properly, Mr. Westwood," Layla said, stepping forward. "I hope you're feeling better." Richard studied her for a long moment. "You're not what I expected?" "What did you expect?" Layla asked before she could stop herself. To her surprise, Richard smiled slightly. "Someone more flamboyant." Given Vanessa's description in that tabloid nonsense. "Vanessa doesn't know Layla," Daniel said firmly. "Clearly." Richard gestured to the chairs beside his bed. "Sit down, both of you." Once they were seated, Richard continued to observe Layla with unnerving intensity. "Daniel tells me you work as a maid at the Grand Plaza." "Yes, sir," Layla said, refusing to be ashamed. "For 6 years now." "And you're saving for college?" "Yes. I want to become a teacher." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "A noble profession. My wife was a great believer in education." "So Daniel mentioned," Layla said, relaxing slightly. "He's talked about me, has he?" Richard glanced at his son with a raised eyebrow. "Only good things," Layla assured him, though it wasn't entirely true. Richard snorted, clearly not believing her. "Young lady, let me be direct. My son says he loves you. He's refused to reconcile with Vanessa, even knowing it might cost us the company." "I know," Layla said, "and I've told him he shouldn't turn his back on his responsibilities because of me." Richard's expression showed surprise. "Did you now?" "That's why she ended things 2 weeks ago," Daniel explained. "She thought she was getting in the way of my family obligations." Richard studied Layla with new interest. "That's unexpected." "Mr. Westwood," Layla said, gathering her courage, "I care about your son very much, but I would never want to be the reason he loses his family or his heritage." Richard was silent for a moment, then pressed a button on his bed. A nurse appeared immediately. "I need a few minutes alone with Miss Brooks," Richard said. Daniel started to protest, but his father cut him off. "It's just a few minutes, Daniel. Go get some coffee." After Daniel left reluctantly, Richard turned his full attention to Layla. "Now we can speak plainly," he said. "What do you want from my son?" "Nothing," Layla said simply. "Everyone wants something." "I just want him to be happy," Layla insisted. "And you think you can make him happy? A hotel maid with no connections, no fortune, nothing to offer the Westwood family?" Layla felt her temper rising. "With all due respect, Mr. Westwood, I'm not trying to join your family. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I didn't pursue your son, he pursued me. And if you think money and connections are all that matter in making someone happy, then I feel sorry for you." Richard's eyebrows shot up at her outburst. "Daniel is kind, thoughtful, and genuinely cares about people," Layla continued, unable to stop now. "He wants to use his position to help others, not just accumulate more wealth. He's a good man, despite growing up with every material advantage." "Despite?" Richard repeated. "Yes, despite," Layla said firmly. "Because wealth often makes people selfish and entitled, but Daniel isn't like that. He sees people, really sees them. That's rare, especially in his world." To Layla's surprise, Richard smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his stern face. "You really do care about him," he said, sounding almost wondering. "I love him," Layla admitted, the words coming easily now. "I tried not to, but I do." Richard nodded slowly. "My wife would have liked you, Ms. Brooks." Daniel said the same thing, Layla said softly. "Cynthia could always see past the trappings of wealth to a person's true character," Richard said, his voice gentle with memory. "She kept me grounded. After she died..." He shook his head. "I suppose I lost sight of what really matters." He looked at Layla directly. "I've spent the past decade building an empire for my son, never questioning whether that's what would make him happy." "It's not too late to ask him," Layla suggested. Richard nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps you're right." He studied her for another moment. "You know, Vanessa never once stood up to me, even when I was clearly wrong." "I'm sorry if I was disrespectful," Layla said, suddenly remembering who she was talking to. "Don't be. Respect without honesty is worthless." Richard pressed the call button again. "You can send my son back in now," he told the nurse. Daniel returned quickly, looking between them with concern. "Is everything okay?" "Yes," Richard said. "Ms. Brooks and I have come to an understanding." "What kind of understanding?" Daniel asked, suspiciously. "That she loves you," Richard said simply, "and that perhaps I've been too focused on the company's future at the expense of yours." Daniel looked stunned. He glanced at Layla, who gave him a small smile. "There's still the matter of the Claytons' takeover attempt," Richard continued, "but I believe there may be alternatives to the merger that we haven't fully explored." "I've been working on something," Daniel said eagerly. "A partnership with Zhang Industries that would give us the capital we need without losing control." Richard nodded. "Bring me the proposal this evening. We'll discuss it." As they prepared to leave, Richard called Layla back for one more word. "Ms. Brooks," he said quietly, "I apologize for misjudging you, and for what it's worth, I think you would make an excellent teacher." "Thank you, Mr. Westwood," Layla said, touched by the unexpected kindness. Outside the hospital room, Daniel pulled Layla into his arms. "What did you say to him? I've never seen him back down like that." "I just told him the truth," Layla said, smiling up at Daniel. "That I love you." Daniel's face lit up with joy. "Say that again." "I love you, Daniel Westwood," Layla repeated, her heart overflowing. "Despite your fancy penthouse and your billions." Daniel laughed, then kissed her deeply, right there in the hospital corridor. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Does this mean you're giving us another chance?" he asked hopefully. "Yes," Layla said, "but on one condition." "Anything." "We take it slowly," Layla insisted. "One day at a time. I still have my job, my plans for college. I need to know that we can build something real, not just a fairy tale." "That's all I want," Daniel assured her. "A real life with you, whatever that looks like." As they walked hand in hand from the hospital, Layla felt a new sense of hope. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still reporters, Vanessa's hostility, and the vast differences in their backgrounds to contend with. But for the first time, Layla believed they might have a chance at building a future together. That evening, after Daniel went to meet with his father about the business proposal, Layla returned to her apartment to find a large envelope waiting for her. Inside was a letter from the Westwood Foundation Education Fund, informing her that she had been awarded a full scholarship to the university of her choice, effective immediately. Layla's first instinct was anger. Daniel was trying to buy her future again. But then she noticed the handwriting on a note attached to the letter. It wasn't Daniel's. "Ms. Brooks," Richard Westwood had written. "Consider this the first step in making amends for my misjudgment. Your determination to better yourself despite obstacles is admirable. The fund will cover your expenses regardless of your relationship with my son. Your future as an educator should not depend on matters of the heart." Respectfully, R.W. Layla sat on her bed, the letter in her trembling hands. For the first time since meeting Daniel, she felt like perhaps she could find a place in his world without losing herself. His father's gesture, while still financial, acknowledged her as an individual with dreams of her own, not just as Daniel's girlfriend. Her phone rang, Daniel calling to check on her. "Did you have anything to do with this scholarship?" she asked immediately. There was a pause. "What scholarship?" His confusion seemed genuine. "Your father sent me a scholarship offer from the Westwood Foundation." "He did what?" Daniel sounded shocked. "Layla, I swear I had no idea." "I believe you," Layla said, smiling despite herself. "I think your father is trying to show his approval in the only way he knows how." "By throwing money at the situation?" Daniel asked, sounding amused. "Like father, like son," Layla teased. Daniel laughed. "Taoshi, are you going to accept it?" Layla looked at the letter again. "I think I will. Your father made it clear it's not contingent on our relationship. And honestly, it would change everything for me, Daniel. I could start college next semester instead of 2 years from now." "Then accept it," Daniel said warmly, "and know that I'm incredibly proud of you." After they hung up, Layla held the letter to her chest, tears of joy in her eyes. For so long, she'd believed that dreams were for other people, people with money and connections. But now, against all odds, her dreams were within reach, and beyond the scholarship, beyond the material changes in her circumstances, was the knowledge that she was loved, truly loved, by a man who saw her for exactly who she was. As she fell asleep that night, Layla no longer felt invisible. For the first time in her life, she had been seen, not for what she could give or what she represented, but for herself. And that, more than anything, felt like the greatest gift of all. 6 months passed, and Layla's life transformed in ways she never could have imagined. With the Westwood Foundation scholarship, she had enrolled in university, taking evening classes, while continuing to work part-time at the hotel. Mrs. Winters had been surprisingly supportive, adjusting Layla's schedule to accommodate her classes. The media frenzy around her relationship with Daniel had eventually died down, especially after the Westwood legal team forced the Herald to print a retraction of Vanessa's article. There were still occasional photos of them in the tabloids, but Layla had learned to ignore them. Daniel had successfully fought off the Clayton takeover attempt by partnering with Zhang Industries, a move that had increased Westwood Industries' value and earned him the respect of the board. Richard Westwood had recovered enough to return to work part-time, though he had officially named Daniel as CEO. Through it all, Daniel and Layla had stayed true to their promise to take things slowly. They saw each other several times a week, getting to know each other in the real world, outside the bubble of their initial romance. Daniel attended Layla's first college presentation, sitting proudly in the back of the classroom. Layla accompanied Daniel to a few business functions, where she was increasingly accepted as his partner. One bright spring morning, Layla was studying in her apartment when her phone rang. It was Daniel. "Good morning, beautiful," he said when she answered. "How's the studying going?" "Slowly," Layla admitted. "Child development theories are fascinating but complicated." "You'll master them," Daniel said confidently. "You've aced every test so far." Layla smiled at his unwavering faith in her. "What are you up to today? I thought you had meetings all morning." "I rescheduled," Daniel said. "I want to take you somewhere special. Can you be ready in an hour?" "Daniel, I have so much studying to do. Please, it's important." Something in his voice made Layla pause. "Okay, 1 hour." When Daniel arrived, he was driving himself rather than having Thomas bring the car, a rare occurrence that piqued Layla's curiosity. "Where are we going?" she asked as they drove out of the city. "It's a surprise," Daniel said with a mysterious smile. After about an hour on the road, they turned onto a tree-lined drive leading to a beautiful old elementary school. Children were playing in the playground, their laughter carrying on the spring breeze. "What is this place?" Layla asked as Daniel parked the car. "Meadowbrook Elementary," Daniel replied. "Come on." Inside, they were greeted by an older woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair. "Mr. Westwood, right on time," she said with a warm smile. "And this must be Miss Brooks." "Yes, I'm Layla," she said, shaking the woman's hand, still confused. "I'm sorry, I don't understand what we're doing here." "I'm Patricia Garcia, the principal," the woman explained. "Mr. Westwood asked to tour our facility with you." "Daniel." Layla looked at him questioningly. "Just go with it," he whispered, squeezing her hand. Principal Garcia led them through the school, showing them bright classrooms filled with engaged students and colorful artwork. The teachers they met were enthusiastic, and clearly loved their jobs. "This is one of the most innovative elementary schools in the state," Principal Garcia explained. "We emphasize creative learning, emotional intelligence, and community involvement." They walked. Layla became increasingly enchanted with the school. It was exactly the kind of place she dreamed of teaching one day. "And this," Principal Garcia said, stopping at a classroom door, "is our third-grade classroom, currently without a permanent teacher." Layla glanced at Daniel, who was watching her with an expectant smile. "Go ahead," he encouraged. "Take a look." Inside. The classroom was beautiful. Shelves of books, learning stations around the perimeter, and desks arranged in small groups rather than rows. On the teacher's desk was a nameplate that read, "Ms. Brooks." Layla turned to Daniel in shock. "What is this?" "It's an opportunity," he said softly. "Principal Garcia knows you're still finishing your degree, but they have a teacher's aide position open for next fall. You could work here while completing your studies, and when you graduate, there's a teaching position waiting for you." "But I don't understand. How did you arrange this?" Principal Garcia stepped in. "The Westwood Foundation has been supporting our school for years. When Daniel told me about your passion for teaching, I was intrigued. But to be clear, Ms. Brooks, this isn't just a favor to Daniel. We've reviewed your college work so far, and your professors speak very highly of you." "I had nothing to do with that part," Daniel assured her. "They chose you on your own merits." Layla walked slowly around the classroom, touching the books, looking at the little desks where children would sit. It was like walking through her own dream. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to decide right now," Principal Garcia said kindly. "Take some time to think about it. I'll give you a moment." She excused herself, closing the door behind her. Layla turned to Daniel, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You did this for me?" "I just made the connection," Daniel said. "The rest was all you, your grades, your professors' recommendations, your passion for teaching." "But why?" Layla asked. "My original plan was to finish school first, then look for a position. Because I saw how your eyes light up every time you talk about teaching," Daniel said, taking her hands. "And because I wanted to show you that I support your dreams, not just with money, but by helping you create a path to achieve them." Layla was overwhelmed. This gesture was different from the others. Daniel wasn't trying to solve a problem or buy her future. He was helping her build it on her own terms. "There's something else," Daniel said, suddenly looking nervous. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Layla's heart began to race. "Daniel, before you panic," he said quickly, "this isn't what you think." He opened the box to reveal a simple silver key. "It's a key to a house," Daniel explained. "A small house about 20 minutes from this school. I bought it for you." "For me?" Layla repeated, confused. "You've been clear that you value your independence," Daniel continued, "that you want to make your own way. So this house is yours, Layla. Not mine. Not ours. Yours." "I can't accept a house, Daniel," Layla protested. "You can if it's a graduation gift," Daniel said with a slight smile. "Think of it as believing in your future so much that I'm investing in it now." Layla shook her head, torn between gratitude for his thoughtfulness and frustration at his persistence in giving her expensive gifts. Seeing her conflict, Daniel added softly, "If it helps, I didn't buy a mansion. It's a modest 3-bedroom in a normal neighborhood, the kind of home a teacher might own." "Can I at least see it before I decide?" Layla asked. Daniel grinned. "That's our next stop." The house was indeed modest by Westwood standards, a charming cottage-style home with a garden in the front and a small backyard with a magnolia tree. Inside, it was simply furnished with comfortable, practical pieces. "I kept the decorating minimal," Daniel explained as he showed her around. "I thought you'd want to make it your own." Layla walked through the rooms, trying to process everything. The house was perfect, warm, welcoming, and exactly the kind of place she'd dreamed of having someday. But it was too much. "Daniel, I appreciate all of this so much," she began carefully. "The school opportunity, this beautiful house, but it feels like you're trying to create a perfect life for me, and I need to build my own life." "I understand," Daniel said, his face falling slightly. I got carried away. I just wanted to show you what's possible." Layla took his hands. "And I love you for that. But I can't accept the house." Daniel nodded, hiding his disappointment. "I understand. But," Layla continued, "I will accept the opportunity at the school. That's something I can earn on my own merit." Daniel's smile returned. "That's fair. And the house will still be here, if you ever change your mind." They walked back outside, and Layla looked up at the little house with its welcoming porch and bright windows. It really was lovely. "There's a compromise we could consider," she said, slowly. "I'm listening," Daniel said, hope creeping into his voice. "What if I rented it from you? Paid a fair market rent," Layla suggested. "That way I'm not accepting a gift I'm not ready for, but I can still live in this beautiful place." Daniel considered this. "What about a rent-to-own arrangement? You pay what you can afford and eventually it becomes yours through your own efforts." Layla felt a warm glow spread through her chest. This was why she loved him, his willingness to meet her halfway, to respect her need for independence while still supporting her dreams. "That could work," she agreed with a smile. Daniel pulled her close, kissing her softly. "You're extraordinary, Layla Brooks. Most women would just take the house." "I'm not most women," she reminded him. "Thank God for that," Daniel said fervently. 3. Months later, Layla moved into the cottage. With Daniel's help, she painted the walls in cheerful colors and filled the bookshelves with teaching resources and her favorite novels. Her roommate Jen had decided to move with her, taking the second bedroom and sharing the rent, making Layla feel even more independent. On the evening after she finally finished unpacking, Daniel came over with champagne to celebrate. They sat on the back porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Happy?" Daniel asked, his arm around her shoulders. "Very," Layla confirmed, leaning against him. "Everything is falling into place. School is going well. I start at Meadowbrook next month, and now I have this beautiful home. There's just one thing missing," Daniel said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. Layla looked up at him. "What's that?" Daniel shifted to face her, taking both her hands in his. "When we first met, you were afraid that our different backgrounds would keep us apart, that I was living in a fantasy about who you were or what our relationship could be." "I remember," Layla said softly. "But these past 9 months have been anything but a fantasy," Daniel continued. "We've faced real challenges together. My father's health, the company crisis, the media scrutiny. We've seen each other at our best and worst." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, a different one this time. "Daniel," Layla breathed, her heart racing. "I'm not rushing you," he assured her quickly. "I know we agreed to take things slowly." He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "This was my mother's," Daniel explained. "My father gave it to me last week. He said he'd never seen me as happy as I am with you." Tears filled Layla's eyes as Daniel continued. "I don't expect an immediate answer," he said. "This isn't about pressuring you. It's about showing you that I'm all in, Layla. Whenever you're ready, whether that's months or years from now, I'll be here, because I want to build a life with you. A real life, with all its complications and challenges and joy." Layla looked at the ring, then at Daniel's hopeful face. 9 months ago, she would have run from this moment, convinced it could never work between them. But now, after everything they'd been through, she knew better. "Ask me," she whispered. Daniel's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" Layla nodded, her heart full of certainty. Daniel slid off the porch swing onto one knee, still holding her hands. "Layla Brooks, you walked into my life when I was hiding from it. You saw me, the real me, when no one else did. You challenged me, stood up to me, and made me a better man. Will you marry me?" For a moment, Layla thought about all the obstacles they'd overcome, the differences in their backgrounds, the public scrutiny, the family expectations. None of it mattered now. "Yes," she said, her voice strong and clear. "Yes, I'll marry you." Daniel's face lit up with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, sparkling in the last rays of the setting sun. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with all the love and promise of their future together. Later that evening, as they sat together making plans, Daniel asked, "When should we tell my father? He'll be thrilled." Let's invite both our families to dinner, Layla suggested. My parents would love to meet yours. Daniel hesitated. Are you sure? My father can be intimidating. Layla laughed. Daniel, I've already stood up to your father. In a hospital room and won his respect. I think I can handle a dinner. You're right. Daniel agreed with a smile. Nothing scares you. That's not true, Layla admitted. I was terrified when I met you, terrified of falling for someone from such a different world. And now? Daniel asked softly. Layla looked around at the cozy home they'd created, then back at the man she loved, the man who had seen her when she thought she was invisible. Now I know that when you truly love someone, you don't have to belong to the same world. You create a new one together. 2 weeks later, both families gathered at Richard Westwood's mansion for dinner. To Layla's surprise, her parents and Daniel's father got along remarkably well. Her father, a construction foreman, found common ground with Richard discussing building projects. Her mother, a nurse, shared stories of her hospital work that had Richard laughing heartily. I never thought I'd see this, Daniel whispered to Layla as they watched their families bonding. My father actually relaxed and enjoying himself. Love has a way of breaking down walls, Layla replied, squeezing his hand. When they announced their engagement, Richard Westwood was the first to raise his glass in a toast. To Daniel and Layla, he said, his voice warm with approval. May you build a life as strong and true as your love for each other. As glasses clinked around the table, Layla caught Daniel's eye. The journey hadn't been easy, and she knew there would be more challenges ahead. But looking at the man she loved, the man who had taught her that she deserved to be seen, she knew they could face anything together. That night, as they drove back to Layla's cottage, Daniel asked, "Any regrets?" About saying yes? Layla looked down at the ring on her finger, then at the man beside her. Not Daniel Westwood, billionaire heir, but simply Daniel, the man she loved. Not a single one, she said with absolute certainty. 6 months later, on a perfect autumn day, Layla stood in a simple white dress at the back of a small chapel filled with their closest friends and family. Music began to play and she took her father's arm. "Ready, sweetheart?" he asked, his eyes misty with pride. Layla nodded, her heart full. As she walked down the aisle toward Daniel, who was waiting for her with love shining in his eyes, she thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. She had gone from being invisible to being truly seen, from cleaning rooms at a luxury hotel to teaching in a classroom she loved, from doubting that love could bridge their different worlds to creating a new world together. When she reached Daniel, he took her hands in his, whispering so only she could hear. "You look beautiful, Ms. Brooks." For the last time, she whispered back with a smile. "In about 20 minutes, it's Mrs. Westwood." Daniel's face lit up with such joy that Layla felt her heart might burst. As they turned to face the minister, ready to begin their life together, Layla knew that the fairy tale hadn't been finding a billionaire prince. The real fairy tale was finding someone who saw her for exactly who she was and loved every part of her. Back in her classroom the following Monday, now wearing a simple gold band alongside her engagement ring, Layla wrote her new name on the board. Mrs. Westwood. A little girl in the front row raised her hand. "Mrs. Westwood, are you really married to the man who owns all those big buildings?" Layla smiled. "I'm married to a man named Daniel, who happens to work in a big building, but more importantly, I'm your teacher, and today we're going to learn about how dreams can come true if you work hard and believe in yourself." As she looked at the eager faces of her students, Layla felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her journey with Daniel had taught her that true love wasn't about wealth or status. It was about seeing each other clearly and choosing each other every day. Daniel had seen her when she was invisible to everyone else, and in turn, she had seen the real man behind the Westwood name. Together, they had built something rare and precious, a love based on truth, respect and the courage to bridge two different worlds. Later that evening, when Daniel came to pick her up after school, he found her sitting at her desk, grading papers with complete absorption. "Happy?" he asked, just as he had the night he proposed. Layla looked up, her face lighting up at the sight of him. "Perfectly," she answered, knowing it was absolutely true. As they walked hand in hand to the car, the afternoon sun warming their faces, Layla thought about how far they'd come, from a chance meeting in a hotel hallway to building a life together, a real life, with its challenges and joys and everyday moments. It wasn't the fairy tale she'd never dared to dream of as a young girl. It was something much better, a love story written not in fantasy but in reality. A love that had seen past appearances and circumstances to the truth of who they were together. Simply love the end.